So our main story for today, not certified. And that's the lead story in Sunday Gleaner, July 13, 2025. It says, Elhydro Limited, the company awarded a $1.4 billion contract by the Jamaican government to import 110 used school buses, is not certified. Now, what it is they're not certified to do, we shall see in a moment. In the meanwhile, let me welcome you to Jamaica 411. I'm your host, Michelle Stern. Welcome back to everyone, my subscribers in particular. Thank you to the new subscribers. And I'm going to ask everyone to please share this video as well as give the video a thumbs up from now on. And feel free to leave your comments in the comments section. So let us now turn to the story, not certified. Now, what the dickens is going on here? And what is this company, Elhydro? Well, it says here, Elhydro Limited, the company awarded a $1.4 billion contract by the Jamaican government to import 110 used school buses, is not certified to do so. The Trade Board has confirmed. You hear that? Every company or every individual importing motor vehicles of any kind into this country requires a trade license, as far as I understand. And the Gleaner, the Sunday Gleaner, is reporting that the company that, listen to what they said, make a note, please. Elhydro Limited, they said, is the company that imported these school buses on behalf of the Jamaican government. And they are saying that they were not certified by the Trade Board to do so. You heard what they said. And they further said that it was confirmed by the Trade Board. So they didn't just come out and publish this. They went to the source and asked the question, and the Trade Board confirmed that they were not certified to do so. Please pay attention to that. The Trade Board, which operates under the Auburn Hill-led Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, also confirmed that the buses were shipped without pre-shipment inspection certificates, as required by the 2014 Motor Vehicle Import Policy. Please make a note of that as well, because me could have swear me hear Daryl said in that press conference that the buses were subjected to rigorous inspection before they arrived in the island, both from our own local JUTC people, which went up to inspect those vehicles, as well as experts foreign. Is that what you recall too? Yes, I seem to think that's what he said. The Sunday Gleaner asked the Trade Board to confirm whether Elhydro is certified as a dealer for new or used motor vehicles, and if so, when the current certification was issued. In response, the agency said that the company is not certified as a dealer of either new or used motor vehicles. Please make a note of all of that. Yes. I would like you to pay close attention to the language that is being used. The Gleaner is asking the Trade Board to confirm. It's not asking any question. It's asking to confirm, which would suggest that they had information to that effect already, that they were not certified as dealer of either new or used motor vehicles. They would have known that already and went to the Trade Board to have them confirm that that is true. They would have also known, because they used the word confirm again, they wanted the Trade Board to confirm that the buses were shipped without pre-shipment inspection certificates. So presumably they already knew that, and they just want the Trade Board to confirm it so that they can publish into this Gleaner. And also, they wanted them to confirm that Elhydro Limited was not certified to import the 110 used school buses. So they had that information before. Somebody gave them that information. And now they run to the trade board and ask them to confirm these things. Isn't that what you would understand confirm to me? Yes. And of course, the gleaner would want to confirm the information that was leaked to them because they're a responsible newspaper and they don't want to print these things and it turned out not to be true. So they go to the source and ask the source, the trade board, to confirm these information. And they're quoting the trade board now. Elhydro was issued an import license to import 3 motor vehicles as an importation by a company in keeping with the guidelines set out in the Motor Vehicle Import Policy 2014. So obviously what is happening here is that the gleaner went to the trade board to make some inquiries and they asked them about import licenses that they would have issued to the company Elhydro Limited, and the trade board said yes, we did issue them a license. It says here was issued an import license, so they received 1 import license, and that import license was to import 3 motor vehicles, right? And it says that that is in keeping with the guidelines, so they are within the law. Companies are able to import motor vehicles, 3 motor vehicles under the 2014 Motor Vehicle Import Policy. That's what this is saying. Now, I need you to understand, my friends, that this is very plain in language. It says the company was issued 1 import license, and that import license was for 3 motor vehicles. That's what the trade board told the gleaner. So far, this is saying that there's at least 1 import license that was issued to the company. Let's see now what it says about any other import licenses that may have been issued to this company to import motor vehicles. So in the piece that I just read, there was a mention of the Motor Vehicle Import Policy of 2014. Let's see what that is. This says Motor Vehicle Import Permit Procedures. Now, this is a company we're dealing with, so we'll just jump to the company. It says businesses. You see that? Importing motor vehicles fall into 2 categories. One being non-dealer companies. They are allowed up to 3 motor vehicles every 3 years. And then you have the certified motor vehicle dealers, and they are allowed any category and quantity for resale. So the gleaner, having confirmed that this company, which is not a dealer and therefore is just a private company, they had already imported 3 motor vehicles in the last 3 years, I would assume, and therefore they would not be qualified to import any other vehicle unless they get a waiver, I suppose. But let us see now how it will come about, according to the gleaner, that because that is what they were hinting at, that they were able to import 110 used school buses without being certified. To do so, meaning they had no certification to import these school buses. And in addition to that, they are not dealers. So let us read on. Under the 2014 policy, companies are only allowed to import 3 vehicles no older than 10 years over a 3-year period. The policy also includes a 12-month restrictive clause prohibiting the unauthorized sale, transfer, or pledging of such vehicles. So, what this is saying, a company in Jamaica is allowed to bring in motor vehicles, then bring it in directly, but only 3. And they can bring them in over a 3-year period. And it must not be older than 10 years. They must have the vehicle for 1 year, 12 months. And during that 12-month period, they cannot sell it. They cannot transfer to anybody else or any other entity, and they can't pledge it either. And that, I suppose, would mean as security for a loan. This is a restriction on the license. So the Gleaner gave us more information than we had. Yes. The Gleaner report continues. Any requirement for more than 3 units within the specified time frame, which of course is 3 years, must be met through purchases from local certified dealers. So the maximum that they can bring in within that 3-year period is 3 cars. Them want more, them have to go to the dealers or go to a dealer locally and buy it. That's what that is saying. In a letter dated May 27, 2025, and addressed to MSETT Minister Daryl Vaz, so that's Daryl Vaz's ministry, Trade Board Chairman Danville Walker stated that approval has been granted for Elhydro to import the 110 buses on behalf of the ministry for the Rural School Bus Transportation Program. Walker was responding to a letter from Vaz dated May 10. And they are quoting now, please note that all necessary administrative support has been extended to Elhydro to facilitate their registration via the Jamaica single window for trade platform to ensure a smooth application process for import permits for the buses. Walker's letter read. This is a little puzzling. In the top paragraph, it said that Walker stated that approval has been granted for Elhydro to import the 110 buses. So they were given the approval. I see. And then in the second paragraph, they are quoting him as saying that the necessary support, administrative support, has been extended to them to facilitate their registration via the Jamaica Single Window for Trade platform to ensure a smooth application process for import permits for the buses. I don't get that. And of course, whenever we read statements, we have to reconcile them. So is it that they're saying here that for them to import these buses, they had to be granted approval first, and then after they were granted the approval, which Danville Walker is saying that yes, they were granted the approval, they now must go and apply for import permits. That seems to be what this is saying. And it's at that point, after receiving the import permits, that they can now bring in the buses. Yes, I think that is what that is saying. So now they're going to deal with Daryl Vaz and the things that he said at that conference. At a news conference last week, Vaz revealed that more than 26 of the buses had already arrived in the country, with additional units expected later this month. And they're quoting him now. So, in essence, all 110 buses will be here by the end of July, said Vaz, noting that this marks phase 1 of the program. Phase 2 will involve the importation of another 200 to 300 buses. Then they went on to say, he said a dedicated team from the Jamaica Urban Transit Company inspected the buses in the United States to ensure their safety, reliability, comfort, and maintenance and efficiency. And they are quoting Daryl Vaz now. So let me make that clear. We did not buy buses based on pictures, said Vaz. We sent a team from the JUTC along with the supplier to go and inspect and select the buses that we deemed and thought suitable for Jamaica. The Sunday Gleaner also asked the Trade Board to confirm whether pre-shipment inspection certificates were received for each bus imported under the government's Rural School Bus Transportation Program. In response, the Trade Board reiterated that the pre-shipment inspection certificates are required under the 2014 policy, but disclosed that a waiver was granted for Elhydro's importation. Make a note of that. That's what the Gleaner was told by the Trade Board, that there was no pre-shipment inspection certificate. because that was waived. However, remember what Daryl Vaz had said, that they had sent a team from the JUTC to inspect the buses in the United States for their safety, reliability, comfort, and maintenance and efficiency. That's what he said. So the pre-shipment inspection was carried out by the JUTC. That's what that is saying. Now, my friends, I know your heart is in your mouth and you're saying, Lord of mercy, what shall I come with now? Bear up, and be patient. All right? Because there's more to it than just what the Gleaner is reporting. You're going to be hearing what Daryl Vaz said happened after I finish the story. So bear up, everyone, bear up. Since February 1, 2018, vehicles shipped from designated countries must undergo pre-shipment inspection before an import permit is issued. As of June 1, 2019, the process also includes sanitization to protect Jamaica's biosecurity. So, the Gleaner went on to say the board explained, that is the trade board, that the waiver was granted by the Motor Vehicle Import Committee under the category now, compelling circumstances. So make a note of that, everyone. According to the board, the Motor Vehicle Import Committee considered the request of the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport for the importation of 110 buses without the accompanying PSI certificates. That would be the pre-inspection certificates. So hold on here now. Now, I needed to pay close attention to the language that is being used here, because they asked the trade board something, and the trade board said that the requirement for pre-shipment inspection was waived to the company. And now it is saying here that the trade board told them that it was the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport that had requested the waiver. And the mere fact that it was the ministry that was requesting of the trade board that they should waive the requirement for pre-inspection ought to have told the Gleaner something, but they evidently did not notice. The Gleaner went on to say, after considering the compelling circumstances, the Motor Vehicle Import Committee recommended that the import permit or license should be granted. So, what they are saying here now, the company applied to bring in these buses, and the trade board granted the approval when they were applying for the import permit. Not sure if there's a difference between import permit and import license, but they were supposed to have also submitted a pre-inspection certificate for each of the buses to be imported. That's what they were supposed to have submitted before they get the import permit. However, the ministry had applied to the trade board for a waiver of the requirement under the heading that there were compelling circumstances. We don't know what that is yet. And the Motor Vehicle Import Committee said okay, and they permitted the vehicles to be imported without the requirement for pre-shipment inspection certificate. That's what that is saying. But remember, Vaz said that the JUTC had done the pre-shipment inspection abroad. The board said that the waiver was allowed because the buses were intended for use under the Rural School Bus Transportation Program. Additionally, the Island Traffic Authority was expected to inspect and sanitize the buses upon arrival in Jamaica to ensure roadworthiness and safety. So, what they're saying is we need to bring in these buses right away, and we have the Island Traffic Authority. They are capable of inspecting the buses and sanitizing them when they arrive. That's what that is saying. And it's on that basis that the trade board is saying that its committee, the Motor Vehicle Import Committee, granted the waiver. See? Yes. So, by way of explaining why it is that the board would have done this, perhaps the Gleaner asked if you ever do it for anybody else. Their response is this was a Government of Jamaica initiative and time was of the essence to ensure that the buses would be landed, inspected by the Island Traffic Authority, and ready for use by the new school term in September 2025. So that was the compelling reason. They needed the buses to be in Jamaica quick and fast so that they can be ready for the new school year. You get that? Yes. And a little antenna went up, you know. It went up with you too? Yes. Mm. They hasten bringing in these buses. I think so too. Yes. And guess what? I know we alone think so. I think other people think so too. That's why they might try to beat up and beat down and beat sideways and all kind of ways them a beat up the bus system because them also think so too. You agree? Yes, sir. Make we continue. The Gleaner further reports it said, that's a trade board, the requirement of a pre-shipment inspection certificate is to ensure that imported vehicles are safe, roadworthy, and fit for purpose, and the Island Traffic Authority has the skill set and competence to inspect for these criteria. So, what therefore was the arrangement? The Island Traffic Authority would inspect the buses when they are here, and it is the JUTC who would have done the pre shipment inspection abroad. You follow? That seems to me to be what the arrangement was. The Trade Board seems to be offering up its own opinion. It says, as a cost saving measure, instead of the government of Jamaica paying for an inspection of 110 buses in order to obtain 110 pre shipment inspection certificates, the inspection cost would be significantly reduced with same results when undertaken by the Island Traffic Authority. I suppose the individual may have been offering a reason why the government may have wanted it waived. So cost may have been a consideration. I suspect that what really was a consideration was the time is of an essence that the trade board had said as one of the reasons, the compelling circumstances for granting the waiver. And that was really what was the motivator. But that is not to say that the cost consideration was not part of it as well. The Gleaner went on to say, local motor vehicle dealers are questioning the decision, disclosed Linville Hamilton, president of the Jamaica Used Car Dealers Association. The dealers are wondering why. Why did they make that decision? That's a trade board, that is. They are wondering why there were no pre-shipment inspections given the age of the vehicles. They find it quite strange, Hamilton told the Sunday Gleaner on Friday, declining to comment further. VAS has said the average age of the buses is 10 years compared to 14 years for those in the public passenger system. So the Gleaner got the information from the trade board and went over to the dealers, at least this particular dealer, and tell him what the trade board had done. He, Mr. Hamilton, says, well, that is strange. I mean, given the age of these vehicles, an average age of 10 years, why were there no pre-shipment inspections done on these vehicles? Why would a trade board have permitted that? How very odd is what he said. So the Gleaner went over there and informed them and asked them what they think about this. And the man refused to make any further comment. But that's fine because the Gleaner got the comment out of Mr. Hamilton that they wanted for the story today. That there is something very strange about the trade board allowing buses of these ages to be imported without pre-shipment inspections. Mr. Hamilton was quite correct to having said nothing more. Now, I want you to bear in mind that all of this is taking place after Minister Daryl Vaz's press conference on Tuesday. So the Gleaner would have heard that the JUTC went to the United States and they were the ones who had done the inspection on the vehicle. They would have heard that. And yet they seem not to have made the connection that pre-shipment inspections were done on these buses by the JUTC. It's just that there were no certificate handy because that requirement was waived. This appears to me to be the Gleaner creating mischief. Mischief. And they got the response that they wanted for today's Gleaner. They wanted the words from the dealers to say that this is unusual. And in their view, implying that it should not have been done, given the age of the vehicles. So now the Gleaner is now in the Iraqi. Let's hear what else they had to say. The report went on to say the minister did not disclose the waiver of the pre-shipment inspection certificates, nor the company's non-certification as a dealer at the press conference. So you're getting it now. Somebody had the information and they noticed that the minister did not actually say that there was a waiver of the requirement for the pre-inspection abroad. What he did say was that the JUTC had done that pre-inspection. Now, it's very possible that they just did not understand what the minister was saying and therefore suppose something fishy was going on. So what did they do? They passed the information on to the Gleaner. Remember, the press conference was held on the Tuesday, and it was the Friday that the Gleaner spoke to the trade board and had all these things they are telling us now confirmed, right? So somebody gave that to the Gleaner. Gleaner said, remember now, that they wanted the trade board to confirm. They only want the trade board to say whether what they knew is true or not true. That's what that means. All right, let's continue reading. The ministry acknowledged Sunday Gleaner questions submitted on Thursday, which included queries about the procurement process used to engage Elhydro. There has been no response so far. So when they ask about the procurement, how it is that you come to select Elhydro to be the ones to import these buses, and up to now them saying they're not getting a response, at least up to press time when they would have published the information in the Gleaner. According to its online profile, Elhydro, incorporated in 2017, a new company, is an independent manufacturer, supplier, and distributor of industrial lubricants, greases, oils, chemicals, and other industrial products. It specializes in automotive, industrial, and heavy-duty applications. So they are not in the business of importing motor vehicles or dealing in motor vehicles, is what this is suggesting. So what is happening so far is that the Gleaner is building what they call in law enforcement circumstantial evidence of what they have not yet specified, but they are giving you these circumstantial evidence for it to suggest in your own mind that something fishy is going on here. But the question is there anything fishy that is going on here? Let us continue to read. Elhydro has received at least two multi-million-dollar government contracts since 2020. In December that year, Cabinet approved a $251.55 million contract for the supply of Elhydro clean oil bypass filtration system to the JUTC. In April 2021, the following year, the company received a $301.9 million contract to supply biodiesel fuel for the state-run bus company. Unsolicited proposal. Now, Mr. Bunting would have known something about this. That's why you're not going to hear them complaining too much. Listen to this. The Sunday Gleaner also contacted Tanya Morgan and Philip Scott, listed as directors of Elhydro, according to the company's Office of Jamaica Records. Morgan declined to comment, but Scott defended the company's selection for the contract. Scott revealed that Elhydro submitted an unsolicited proposal to the government for the school bus initiative, and that his company is the only one that could import the specific type of buses required, citing the company's dealership connections. What he's basically saying here is that they have the sole rights to import these buses. He said Elhydro has a well documented history in transportation and dismissed concerns about the company's lack of vehicle import experience. And then they're quoting him now: anyone can buy and import buses, he said. It's a matter of knowing what to look for and when. A business can expand as it sees fit. In other words, he's saying that you don't need any big experience in order to be able to import buses. You only need to know what it is that you're doing, what you're looking for. And of course, what he's saying basically is that they're expanding from being lubricant suppliers to bus suppliers as well. What do they mean by unsolicited proposal? What it means is that they came up with the idea. The government did not ask for proposals. They were the ones who came up with the idea and approached the government and suggested to the government that they should import these yellow buses for the school bus program. And when I referred to Bunting and said that he couldn't say anything about it, you would recall when the contractor general was investigating the sweetheart deal between DB&G and the Jamaica government back in the 90s, he had said that the reason why the government was giving them the contract was because the ideas were their ideas, and it would have been unfair for them to approach the government and say, look, here's an idea, and then them turn around and give the contract to somebody else who outbid them. That is why I said so. That is why Bunting said nothing about the procurement of these buses and how this company came to have gotten this contract in the first place. They said nothing when they realized that this was what happened. The company had submitted an unsolicited proposal. It was their idea. And that is why they got the contract without it going to competitive bidding. So Bunting and Golding could not criticize the process. But somebody fed the Gleaner the information for the Gleaner to go and publish it because them can't say nothing about it. You follow? Yes. So I think we may know who is the source of this attempt to scandalize Daryl Vaz and the government. So they're still quoting Mr. Scott. It was just based on the premise that we saw a need for that which could actually transform the transportation sector, he said, noting that the proposal was made a few years back with multiple follow-ups before approval. Scott dismissed objections to the program, saying it serves a noble cause. There's no one in Jamaica now that can literally tell us that there is no need for a school bus service. Our business does not have anything to do with politics. I don't play or practice it. We are never political, he said. And the long and short of what that would mean is that he's saying that it was an arm's length deal. In other words, there was no hanky panky or any favors being granted to them. There is a need, and the government decided to fill and fulfill those needs through them being the ones who came to the government in the first place with the idea that they should use these big bright yellow buses in the United States to operate our own school bus system here in Jamaica. Seems to me what he's saying here. The opposition People's National Party has raised concerns about the policy, particularly the inspection regime and the use of retired old buses from the US school system. One of its alternative proposals involves using existing taxi and bus operators, though that has drawn criticism. Claims that the imported buses could endanger lives have also stirred backlash. Backlash for who? And that ends the story. Kimon Francis was a reporter. And that was the lead story in today's Sunday Gleaner. It is the most widely circulated newspaper in Jamaica, the Sunday Gleaner. Something in the order of 400,000 sales, probably more by now. that they get on a Sunday. So enough people would have seen this story. Not to mention those online, like myself, who would have had access to it. So we're talking about a wide audience who would have read this story. Maximum publicity. Well, though it is Sunday, Daryl Vaz put out a statement under the letterhead of the ministry in response to this story. So let us now read what it was that Daryl Vaz said. And as is typical of Daryl, he comes out swinging. For immediate release, it says here, it's found on Facebook. Statement from Minister of Science, Energy, Telecoms and Transport, the Honorable Daryl Vaz MP. False, disingenuous, and reckless suggestion by the Jamaica Gleaner that unlicensed entity was permitted to breach policy. Now, what is he talking about? Remember, the Gleaner said that they had it confirmed by the Trade Board. Now, the Trade Board is not going to volunteer information. You ask them a question, they will answer that question. And listen for another one, and then they answer that too. They had gone and asked them to confirm whether or not Elhydro was a licensed dealer, whether they had imported anything before, and they were told 3 vehicles. They were not licensed to import the buses. That's what it said. They're not certified to do so. They asked for confirmation as to whether the buses were shipped without pre-shipment inspection certificates. They said yes. They asked them if Elhydro was a certified dealer. They said no. So the impression that you would have reading this, and everybody else, is that the Trade Board had granted a license to a company that had dealings with the government before the government was issuing to them multi-million-dollar contracts. A company just set up, right? And the government gave them a contract to import vehicles into Jamaica, and they were not certified to do so. Furthermore, they were not dealers. And make it worse, they were granted a waiver to bring these vehicles in. That is what the Gleaner told us. You're bound to come to the conclusion that hanky-panky must be involved here. Isn't that true? I mean, they went to the dealers and had a dealer that they could have quoted as saying that this was strange. So they add to the story now that this is something that is not done. So the Gleaner is clearly attempting to give the impression, or in any event, the Gleaner has clearly given the impression that something fishy went on here. So let's continue reading to see what that is. For transparency, I have attached evidence of the inspection certification, sample of license from first set of buses, alleged policy being breached, and what the actual policy permits. Now, when it came to the actual policy permits, remember, that was what I read before, that dealers can bring in any amount of vehicle and any type, but companies, they can bring in 3 within a 3-year period. If they want to sell, transfer, or use the vehicle as collateral for a loan, they have to wait 1 year. They have to own the vehicles for 1 year. And then after that, now they can do all of those things. That's basically what that says. Now for the press release. It's dated Sunday, July 13, 2025. And it says statement from the minister. Transport Minister, the Honorable Daryl Vaz, is rejecting a suggestion by the Jamaica Gleaner newspaper in its publication of July 13, 2025, that a company, Elhydro, was permitted to import 110 buses into Jamaica despite not being certified and or licensed to do so. The suggestion is reckless, false, and misleading. Yes, and you will soon see why. The Minister Vaz reiterated that the facts are as follows. The facts are as follows. The Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport is the documented licensed importer of all buses brought into Jamaica under the government's Rural School Bus Initiative. Did you get that? The statement is saying that it is a fact that the buses that were imported so far, the 26 of them and the rest that is coming, they are not being imported by Elhydro. They are in fact being imported by the ministry. The Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport is the documented licensed importer of all the buses brought under this program. So, so the trade board wicked though. Why the trade board did not tell the Gleaner that? Who in the trade board would have told the Gleaner that it was Elhydro that the import license was given to? Who could have done that? When here it is, the ministry is saying that it is recorded there at the trade board that at them got the license to import the vehicles, not the company Elhydro Limited. And when we read that Elhydro Limited did not have the permit, they were not certified to bring in buses, that's when it occurred to us that if they are not certified to carry in the buses, then it must have been brought in by the ministry. Precisely what happened when Dawes was telling you that he could not find any importation of that neurosurgical drill. Remember that? He couldn't find it because it was Sarah. It was imported in Sarah's name. And so, in the case of these buses, Elhydro, they are not dealers. They are not dealers. They're not certified dealers. They have no certification to bring in buses. And it never occurred to the Gleaner to ask, so who brought in these buses? If they had asked that question, they would have been told that it was actually the ministry that had the license to bring in these buses. It was also obvious that it was the ministry who had imported these buses because the invoice, the commercial invoice that you saw floating around on social media, said that it was the ministry who was the receiver. Why would it say so if it was not the ministry that imported it? This is a commercial invoice. It means that the import documentation would also have the ministry as the receiver. How could they have missed that? But then again, they were too interested in looking for duppies, ever assuming that corruption is in everything that government does, that they're blind to even the evidence that is before their eyes. Either they knew the truth or they did not know. And because they are imbeciles and could not read the document and understand what it means, they went and excite the interest of the Gleaner and them now pay no attention. Gone and ask questions of the trade board. Did they ask the trade board how it is that they issued license for the importation of buses to a company that is not certified to do so? They are not dealers. You notice in the story, they never said they asked the trade board that question, and the trade board gave them any response. So they simply asked for confirmation, and then they come and publish the story because they wanted a certain narrative to go out and they did not want the facts. What they wanted to do was to create a scandal. That's what they wanted to do, to contrive the creation of a scandal that never existed. And they went and asked questions to confirm this and confirm that, and never asked the obvious question: how come? How come you're giving license to a company that is not certified to bring in buses? How come you gave to a company import license for buses and they're not dealers? How come? How is it possible that the Gleaner never asked the Trade Board that question? It don't make no sense. They must have asked the question. How is it possible that you gone to the Trade Board, you have a link in the Trade Board to tell you things? I mean, these persons were telling you things, or this person. How it is you never ask them the obvious question? And you're a journalist, Kimon. You're not making any sense, Gleaner. Here is a commercial invoice that must have been given to you. They did the importation themselves and they asked for a waiver. It was not a waiver given to the company, but a waiver given to the ministry. That was what they were telling you when they said that this was a government program. They were saying it was a ministry all along and I wasn't paying attention. And now, when they're gone out, they're gone embarrass yourself. The press release went on to say, Elhydro acted as the supplier for the ministry, given that they are the sole approved agent in Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean for the dealer or manufacturer of the make or model buses which were imported. Elhydro received permission from the Trade Board to facilitate the importation of the buses on behalf of the ministry. For emphasis, the ministry is the documented licensed importer of the 110 buses and not the company Elhydro, as the Gleaner was suggesting. The individual who leaked the information, they leaked the commercial invoice. A commercial invoice is usually attached to an import entry form. It means that on that import entry form, they would have seen who it was that imported the vehicles and know that it was a ministry. So when they send it out claiming that it was the company that did the importation, that was a damn lie. And it would appear that they may have fed the Gleaner this damn lie for them to run with. And we know it's the risers that's behind it because it was a commercial invoice that they also used to talk about the neurosurgical drill. And just as they were lying at that time about the government buying one source of drill for 31 million, when it was in fact 27 million that the government spent for the drill and 151 attachments. They are lying now about the importation of the buses. You understand now, Gleaner? Those risers fed you this lie, knowing it was a lie, and you went and you spread it. So we now know that Elhydro is the sole agent for the two school bus manufacturers, Thomas Built and Bluebird. They are the sole agent. The news release went on to say Elhydro would not be required to be registered with the Trade Board as a used motor vehicle dealer, as school buses are specialized units which are not imported for resale, as would be the case for dealers who trade in the business of used vehicles. Based on the contractual arrangements, Elhydro had responsibility for sourcing, shipping, and clearing the buses on arrival in Jamaica and handing over to the ministry. The importation license obtained by the ministry was the premise upon which the vehicles were allowed into Jamaica. Elhydro was granted a permit by the Trade Board to import only 3 buses under a private pilot initiative. This was issued in keeping with the motor vehicle importation policy. The Jamaica Gleaner article also perpetuates the false notion that the vehicles under the rural bus system may not have been certified, despite the fact that rigorous certification procedures were observed. It should be noted. And that, of course, was done by the JUTC team. And so they list 3 items to be noted. 1, the 110 buses were certified in 2025 as required by the United States Department of Transport's stringent criteria. The buses were assessed by specialist bus inspection entities which operate in all 52 states in the United States and are approved by the Department of Transportation. I understand that the name of the company that they use to do the inspection is called American Auto Checks. The second point is that the JUTC engineers visited the United States and conducted rigorous inspection of the buses. So they didn't just depend on American Auto Checks to do the inspection. They sent up a team of JUTC engineers as well. And it was necessary for us to inspect the buses as well to ensure that they meet with our requirements here in Jamaica. That is what I'm getting from this. The Island Traffic Authority, which is the competent authority in Jamaica to conduct certification of vehicles, conducted rigorous certification processes and subsequently issued certification of fitness for the vehicles. So he is confirming what it was that the trade board told the Gleaner, but apparently the Gleaner didn't quite get it. Looking for a duppy around the corner to say, yes, man, this looked like corruption and a scandal. Minister Vaz says, unsurprisingly, the headline in the Jamaica Gleaner of July 13, 2025, which stated not certified, appears to deliberately and recklessly perpetuate false, disingenuous, and misleading narratives concerning a transformative policy which will positively impact rural Jamaica. Maybe so, but remember, they were asking the trade board to confirm information. Somebody fed them the lie, and they put two and two together and got 22. And that, I suppose, is their fault. They should have come and asked the minister before publishing, and then they would not be in this embarrassing position. Of course, the risers got what they wanted. They got the lies out, and they got the Gleaner to put it out for them. But we in the resistance know Peter Bunting's footprint whenever we see it. And he is the one that is behind this, him and him risers. One of their maneuverings that I told you in my last video that you're to look out for. And I told you that every time they maneuver, it will backfire because it is so plain as day that Duns Bunting has this signature that whenever we see it, we spot it immediately and know that they are behind it and expose them as such. So here's what I get from all of this. The company is actually the sole agent for the two school bus manufacturers, and their job was simply to source the buses, bring them to Jamaica, clear them, and then hand them over to the government. They were acting as an agent for the bus companies. So the bus companies would pay them a commission. Remember, they're an agent, and an agent is somebody who acts on somebody else's behalf. So Elhydro Limited was the sole agent for the two school bus companies, and the government of Jamaica was their client. See? Yes. Anyway, I hope I've managed to clear up some of what is going on here for everyone to understand. I hope you did. I want to thank you all for joining me today, for sharing, liking, subscribing, and leaving your comments in the comments section. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good.